and I'd never heard a whiff of anything around an endorsement deal with Kawhi or anything around engagement with the Los Angeles Clippers. So it was all new to me.
Commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, didn't hold back when he talked about penalties for the Clippers. I mean, we're talking about a $28 million fraud scheme involving Kawhi Leonard. Federal agents are already cycling as the Clippers scramble for a way out. But what investigators found next will shock you. The green empire that fooled Hollywood. 2 Harvard graduates with political ambitions, celebrity endorsements from Iron Man himself, and a company valued at over $2 billion that promised to save the planet one tree at a time. This sounds like the perfect Silicon Valley success story, doesn't it? Well, what if I told you that this entire empire was built on lies, fraud, and potentially one of the most shocking salary cap circumvention schemes in NBA history? Welcome to the twisted tale of Aspiration, a company that managed to convince some of the most famous people in the world to become their celebrity spokespersons, all while orchestrating what investigators now believe was an elaborate financial fraud that reaches into the very heart of professional basketball. And at the center of this scandal, none other than Kawhi Leonard, the enigmatic superstar of the Los Angeles Clippers, who allegedly received $28 million for doing absolutely nothing. But let's start from the beginning, because this story is so outrageous, so perfectly crafted in its deception that it reads like a Hollywood thriller. Except this time, Hollywood wasn't writing the script. They were getting scammed by it. Meet Andre Cherney and Joe Sandberg, 2 ambitious Democrats who co-founded Aspiration in 2013. These weren't just any ordinary entrepreneurs. Andre Cherney had served as the youngest White House speechwriter in United States history, working directly under President Bill Clinton. He later became the chair of the Arizona Democratic Party and even ran for Congress with Clinton's personal endorsement.
Hello, this is President Bill Clinton. I'm calling to ask you to join me in supporting Andre Cherney for Congress. I've known Andre since he worked for me in the White House to improve education and to create new jobs. He's innovative, he's creative, so I trust him to get our economy going, and you should too.
The fact that a former president of the United States was personally vouching for Andre Cherney speaks to the level of political connections and credibility these 2 men had built. Cherney wasn't just some random political operative. He had genuine gravitas in Democratic circles, having worked on education policy and job creation at the highest levels of government. His transition from politics to environmental entrepreneurship seemed like a natural evolution for someone who wanted to change the world. His partner, Joe Sandberg, was equally impressive on paper. A private equity veteran from Blackstone, a founding investor in Blue Apron, and by 2019, he was even being mentioned as a potential presidential candidate. The Los Angeles Times ran a splashy headline about him. He made millions as an LA investor. Now he may run for president to fight poverty. What made Sandberg particularly compelling was his backstory. He positioned himself as someone who had made it in the cutthroat world of private equity but wanted to use his wealth and connections to address income inequality and climate change. He was the kind of wealthy Democrat that progressive circles loved, someone who acknowledged the problems with capitalism while using capitalist methods to try to fix them. These 2 Harvard networking event acquaintances had met way back in 1997 and maintained their connection through various Democratic political circles. When they finally decided to go into business together in 2013, they had a vision that perfectly captured the zeitgeist: create a company that would allow people and businesses to offset their carbon footprint by planting trees. It was 2013. Climate change was becoming a mainstream concern, and the concept of investing with a conscience was about to explode. They called their company Aspiration, and their slogan was as catchy as it was cringeworthy: clean rich is the new filthy rich. But what's truly remarkable about Aspiration's rise is how they managed to thread the needle between legitimate environmental concerns and pure marketing genius. They understood that in the post-2016 election era, corporations and celebrities were desperate to align themselves with causes that would make them look socially responsible. The Trump administration's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord had created a vacuum that companies like Aspiration could fill by offering easy ways for businesses and individuals to feel like they were fighting climate change. The business model was deceptively simple, but also brilliantly cynical. They positioned themselves as brokers for carbon credits and tree planting. The concept was straightforward. It typically costs about 10 to 20 cents to plant a tree, but Aspiration was charging their clients a full dollar. That's a markup of 500 to 1,000%. Not bad for a company claiming to save the world.
And here, Amin,
so old.
Here, Amin, is what Aspiration's co-founders, noted Harvard graduates, Andre Cherney and Joe Sandberg, understood. That trees, it turns out, are made of what element?
Carbon?
Carbon. What that means is you could plant trees to zero out not just 3,487 pages of documents, but pretty much any kind of carbon emission you wanted to offset.
But what really made Aspiration special wasn't their business model. It was their celebrity roster. And when I say celebrity roster, I mean they assembled what can only be described as the Avengers of climate change activism. The actual Iron Man was telling people to aspire to a carbon footprint of 0 through Aspiration services. The irony of Tony Stark, a character known for his advanced technology and weapons manufacturing, promoting environmental responsibility wasn't lost on anyone, but somehow it worked. But it didn't stop there. Leonardo DiCaprio became an investor and advisory board member. This wasn't just a casual endorsement. DiCaprio was putting his money where his mouth was, and his environmental activism credentials were unquestioned. Drake invested and gave a statement to Rolling Stone saying, and I quote, "Aspiration's approach to climate change is really inspiring." The list goes on. Orlando Bloom, Cindy Crawford, and even NBA coach Doc Rivers got involved. What's particularly fascinating about the celebrity recruitment strategy is how it leveraged the post-2016 political moment. Celebrities were feeling pressure to take stands on important issues, and climate change was one of the few topics that seemed relatively non-controversial. Aspiration gave them an easy way to be part of the solution without having to make major lifestyle changes or take controversial political positions. Think about this for a moment. These are some of the most recognizable faces on the planet, people whose agents and managers presumably vet every deal they make. Yet somehow, Aspiration convinced all of them to lend their names and reputations to what would eventually be revealed as a massive fraud operation. The fact that legitimate A-list celebrities were willing to put their reputations on the line speaks to how sophisticated Aspiration's presentation was. By 2021, Aspiration had raised a staggering $865 million and was valued at $2.3 billion, with plans to go public. They were signing major corporate partnerships left and right. The Boston Red Sox partnered with Aspiration to become the first carbon-neutral team in MLB, with Aspiration's name literally featured on the grass at Fenway Park. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta bought millions of carbon credits through Aspiration. The Red Sox deal is particularly telling because it shows how Aspiration had managed to penetrate not just Hollywood, but also professional sports. Having your company name on the sacred grass of Fenway Park is the kind of legitimacy that money can't usually buy, except apparently it could if you knew how to package environmental consciousness in the right way. The company seemed unstoppable. Their marketing was everywhere, their celebrity endorsements were genuine, and their growth was exponential. Andre Cherney was appearing on Bloomberg TV as late as 2022, talking about how Aspiration is really in the business of helping both people and businesses fight the climate crisis. The confidence in his voice, the smoothness of his delivery. This was a man who either believed completely in what he was selling or was one of the most accomplished liars in corporate America. But here's the thing about houses of cards. They look impressive until someone examines the foundation. And when investigators finally started looking at Aspiration's foundation, what they found was absolutely shocking. Fast forward to March 2025, and suddenly Aspiration filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company that had been valued at over $2 billion was suddenly worthless. Weeks before the bankruptcy filing, Joe Sandberg was arrested by the Department of Justice and charged with conspiring to defraud an investment fund of at least $145 million. In August 2025, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud, but the fraud went deeper than just Sandberg's crimes. Investigation revealed that Aspiration had claimed to plant over 100 million trees, but only 6% of those trees were actually verified to exist. Think about that for a moment. 94% of the trees that corporate clients and individual customers had paid to plant simply didn't exist. The company had been engaged in what experts call greenwashing on a massive scale, taking money for environmental projects that either didn't exist or were vastly exaggerated. All those celebrities, all those corporate partnerships, all those investments, they were built on a foundation of lies. Robert Downey Jr., Leonardo DiCaprio, Drake, the Red Sox, Meta, they had all been duped by 2 Harvard graduates who had figured out how to monetize good intentions and environmental anxiety. But here's where this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming, because when investigative journalist Pablo Torre decided to dig into Aspiration's bankruptcy filings, he discovered something that would rock the sports world to its core. Hidden in those thousands of pages of bankruptcy documents was a name that didn't belong with the Hollywood celebrities and corporate giants. Among Aspiration's top creditors, owed about $7 million of an original $28 million deal, was an entity called KL2 Aspire LLC, and the manager of that LLC, Kawhi Leonard.
Wait, you're telling me, of all the rich and famous people they paid to be part of this, to legitimize this, right? Iron Man, the guy from The Revenant, right? All these people, the guy from Degrassi High. Kawhi is that's the apex? That is the highest paid celebrity endorser of this?
That's right. Kawhi Leonard, the notoriously private, media-shy superstar who barely speaks in public, had somehow become Aspiration's highest-paid celebrity endorser at $28 million, more than Drake, Robert Downey Jr., and Leonardo DiCaprio combined. And here's the kicker. There's no evidence that Kawhi Leonard ever did a single thing to earn that money. The ghost endorsement that could destroy the Clippers. Now, if you know anything about Kawhi Leonard, you know that him becoming anyone's highest paid spokesperson is like finding out that a hermit crab has started hosting talk shows. This is a man so private, so averse to the spotlight, that his own teammates sometimes joke about his mysterious nature.
I'm so glad to get a chance to talk to you because you are a mysterious man. Do you feel like you are a mysterious man?
No, not at all. I don't. The people around me know who I am.
Even when Kawhi appeared on Jimmy Kimmel, one of his rare public appearances, the entire conversation was about how little the public knows about him. The depth of Kawhi's reclusiveness cannot be overstated. This is a player who has given fewer interviews than almost any superstar in modern NBA history. While other players are constantly on social media, doing podcasts, appearing in commercials, and building their personal brands, Kawhi has maintained an almost monk-like distance from public engagement. His Instagram posts are rare and usually related to basketball. He doesn't have a Twitter account. He's never started a podcast or appeared regularly on anyone else's. Kawhi Leonard is so intensely private that one of the most famous stories about him, the Apple Time story, where he allegedly brought 12 apples to a team dinner and ate them with a knife and fork while saying Apple Time, was completely fake. But the fact that everyone believed it shows you exactly what kind of person we're dealing with. The story felt plausible because it captured something essential about Kawhi's otherworldly weirdness and social awkwardness. Even when directly confronted about the fake story, Kawhi's response was so deadpan and matter-of-fact that it somehow made him seem even more mysterious. This is also a man known for his extreme frugality, which makes the $28 million Aspiration deal even more suspicious. Sports Illustrated reported that when Wingstop gave him coupons for free wings as part of an endorsement deal, he once panicked when he lost the coupons and had his team contact Wingstop to get them replaced. We're talking about a player making tens of millions of dollars who was worried about losing free wing coupons. Kawhi famously drove the same 1997 Chevy Tahoe from college for years, even after signing multi-million-dollar contracts. This wasn't a publicity stunt or an attempt to seem relatable. This was genuine frugality from someone who had grown up without much money and understood its value. So when Pablo Torre started digging into this $28 million Aspiration deal, the first red flag was obvious. If Kawhi Leonard is so careful about his endorsements that he stops eating chicken wings when a deal ends, how did he end up in a $28 million agreement with a company that nobody had ever seen him promote? Torre's investigation, which he detailed in a Bombshell episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out on September 3rd, 2025, revealed the shocking answer. He didn't promote them at all. Ever. According to Torre's reporting, there is zero evidence that Kawhi Leonard ever fulfilled any endorsement duties for Aspiration. No social media posts, no advertisements, no public appearances, no events, nothing. An internal Aspiration source told Torre that the deal was explicitly designed to circumvent the salary cap. But here's where this story gets even more suspicious. The timeline of these payments coincides perfectly with some very interesting events in Clippers history. In July 2019, Kawhi Leonard signed a 4-year, $141 million contract with the Los Angeles Clippers. The NBA cleared this contract of any salary cap circumvention at the time, but in 2021, the Clippers announced a $300 million sponsorship deal with Aspiration, and Steve Ballmer, the Clippers owner and one of the richest people in the world, personally invested $50 million in the company. The timing here is crucial. Ballmer's investment came at a time when the Clippers were desperate to keep Kawhi Leonard happy. Leonard had already forced his way out of San Antonio and Toronto, and there were persistent rumors about his dissatisfaction with various aspects of both organizations. Then, in 2022, the alleged $28 million endorsement deal between Aspiration and Leonard's KL2 Aspire LLC was signed. Of this $28 million, approximately $21 million was dispersed to Leonard, with $7 million still outstanding when the company went bankrupt. Now let me paint you a picture of what investigators believe happened here. Steve Ballmer, desperate to keep Kawhi Leonard happy, and with the Clippers, invests $50 million in Aspiration. Aspiration, flush with Ballmer's cash, then pays Leonard $28 million for a no-show endorsement deal. According to Torre's source, the contract's sole meaningful provision was tied to Leonard remaining a Clipper. This is what investigators call a round trip. Money flows from Ballmer to Aspiration to Leonard, effectively allowing allowing the Clippers owner to pay his star player additional compensation that doesn't count against the salary cap. It's salary cap circumvention disguised as a legitimate business transaction. The role of Uncle Dennis Robertson in all of this cannot be ignored. Uncle Dennis has been a controversial figure throughout Kawhi's career, with multiple teams complaining to the NBA about his influence and demands. During Leonard's 2019 free agency, there were reports of unusual requests and demands that raised eyebrows around the league. The fact that opposing fans were chanting Uncle Dennis's name at games shows how much his influence over Kawhi's career decisions had become part of the public narrative. Some reports suggest that Uncle Dennis was pushing for financial arrangements beyond just Kawhi's salary during the 2019 free agency period. If true, this would provide context for how a deal like the Aspiration arrangement might have come about. Uncle Dennis may have been looking for creative ways to maximize Kawhi's earning potential beyond the constraints of the salary cap. And this isn't just speculation. Torre's investigation uncovered documents and anonymous sources that paint a clear picture of this alleged scheme. The deal was described internally at Aspiration as the company's largest ever sponsorship, dwarfing deals with Drake, Robert Downey Jr., and Leonardo DiCaprio combined. But wait, there's more. This isn't even the first time questions have been raised about unusual financial arrangements surrounding Kawhi Leonard. Torre's reporting suggests there were similar no-show deals worth $15 million during Leonard's time with the Toronto Raptors, though these remain unproven. If this pattern of behavior is real, it suggests a systematic approach to circumventing salary cap rules across multiple teams. The implications of this are staggering. Now, some of these allegations have been disputed. Former Aspiration CEO Andre Cherney has insisted that the contract included 3 pages of extensive obligations that Leonard was expected to perform, calling the no-show claims false. Cherney claims there were actual marketing plans in development to use Leonard in campaigns, but the company's collapse derailed everything. But here's the problem with Cherney's defense. He was forced out of Aspiration in April 2022, allegedly after confronting co-founder Joe Sandberg about the rampant internal fraud. Court documents reveal that Sandberg threatened Cherney to silence his concerns about the company's fraudulent practices. If Cherney was forced out for trying to expose fraud, his credibility as a defender of the Leonard deal becomes questionable. But the NBA isn't buying it. Commissioner Adam Silver announced that the league has hired an external law firm to investigate potential salary cap circumvention, saying, "I'd want anybody treated the same way I would." This investigation has the potential to be devastating for the Clippers. If the NBA determines that this was indeed a scheme to circumvent the salary cap, the penalties could be severe. The investigation that could end everything. The NBA has seen its fair share of scandals over the years, but what makes the Kawhi Leonard Aspiration case potentially catastrophic isn't just the money involved, it's the precedent it could set and the devastating consequences it could have for one of the league's marquee franchises. When Commissioner Adam Silver announced the NBA's investigation on September 13, 2025, he made it clear that this was being treated with the utmost seriousness. The league has hired an external law firm to conduct a thorough probe into potential salary cap circumvention under the collective bargaining agreement, which strictly prohibits off-books payments to players. The choice to hire an external law firm rather than handle the investigation internally speaks to how seriously the league is taking these allegations. The firm reportedly hired is Wilmer Hale, one of the most prestigious white-collar defense and investigation firms in the country. This is the kind of firm you hire when you expect the investigation to potentially result in criminal referrals or major civil penalties. But to understand just how serious this could get, we need to look at the precedents. The NBA has historically come down hard on salary cap violations, and the punishments have been severe. The most obvious comparison is the 2014 Donald Sterling scandal, which resulted in Sterling being forced to sell the team, a $2.5 million fine, and the loss of draft picks. But that was about racist comments, not financial impropriety. However, the Sterling case does show that the NBA is willing to impose the ultimate penalty-forced sale of a franchise when owner conduct threatens the integrity of the league. For financial violations, we can look at cases like the Tim Donaghy referee scandal in 2007, which led to lifetime bans and criminal convictions, or more recently, the Jonte Porter betting scandal in 2024, which resulted in a lifetime ban for the player involved. The Porter case is particularly relevant because it involved a player using inside information for financial gain, which the NBA treated as an existential threat to the integrity of the game. But perhaps the most relevant precedent comes from the NFL, where the New England Patriots faced severe penalties for both Spygate and Deflategate. The NFL showed that even successful, high-profile franchises aren't immune from major sanctions when they're found to have violated league rules systematically. If the NBA determines that the Clippers and Steve Ballmer orchestrated a scheme to pay Kawhi Leonard $28 million off the books, the potential penalties could include fines of $5 million or more, forfeiture of draft picks, contract voids, or even the stripping of titles. The precedent for stripping titles might seem extreme, but it's not unprecedented in professional sports. College basketball has vacated championships for far less serious violations. If the NBA determines that the Clippers' competitive advantage was built on systematic cheating, they might conclude that any success achieved through that cheating is illegitimate. Think about what this means for the Clippers. This is a franchise that has never won an NBA championship in its 55-year history. They're currently playing in a brand new $2 billion arena, the Intuit Dome, which opened in 2024. The arena financing is complex and requires the team to maintain certain revenue levels and competitive success to service the debt. They've built their entire competitive window around Kawhi Leonard, and at 34 years old with chronic knee issues, that window is already closing rapidly. Paul George, Leonard's co-star, left the team in free agency in 2024. James Harden's extension is considered shaky by league insiders. If Leonard's contract is voided, or if he faces suspension, the Clippers could find themselves in complete roster shambles with a massive arena debt to service. The financial implications alone could be devastating. If Leonard's contract is voided, the Clippers would still be responsible for the salary cap hit while losing the player. This would effectively cripple their ability to rebuild while still paying for a player who's no longer on the team. A recent ESPN poll showed that 62% of fans believe penalties are coming, with 28% predicting a full reset that could involve trading Leonard and tanking. The mere existence of this investigation is already affecting the team's ability to plan for the future. Free agents and trade targets are going to be hesitant to commit to a franchise that might face major sanctions. The investigation has already uncovered some damning details. NBA teams received a confidential memo warning against third-party conduits for player compensation, a direct response to this case. This memo essentially tells every team in the league that the NBA is now going to be watching for exactly the kind of arrangement that Leonard allegedly had with Aspiration. The league's law firm has subpoenaed Aspiration's remaining documents, and bankruptcy trustees are reportedly meeting with former Aspiration executives who claim no knowledge of payments to Leonard. This suggests that the investigation is finding evidence that the Leonard deal was hidden even from some company insiders, which would support the theory that it was designed to circumvent league rules. Even more intriguingly, bankruptcy filings reveal that Leonard's LLC attempted to claw back the full $28 million in July 2025 before the bankruptcy filing, raising questions about the timing and Leonard's knowledge of the company's financial problems. The fact that Leonard's representatives were trying to recover money from Aspiration before the fraud became public suggests they may have known something was wrong with the company earlier than they've admitted. The scope of the investigation has also expanded beyond just the Leonard deal. The DOJ, FBI, SEC, and CFTC are all investigating various aspects of Aspiration's fraud, and the NBA's investigation could potentially feed into criminal proceedings if evidence of conspiracy is found. The public reaction has been explosive. Social media has been flooded with reactions, memes, and speculation about the case. A post from at NBA Central about the scandal received over 5 million views, sparking 400+ quotes, debating potential penalties. A video from at KFC Barstool calling it potentially one of the biggest sports scandals ever went viral with 382K views. The reaction from basketball analysts has been equally harsh. Bill Simmons called the 2019 Leonard signing the most damaging transaction in league history on his September 20th podcast, noting the draft picks lost, the Paul George exit, and now this scandal. The Ringer's analysis points out that the Clippers gave up their entire future to build around Leonard, and if that acquisition was tainted by cheating, it represents one of the worst franchise decisions in sports history. The investigation is expected to wrap up by December 2025, but the damage to the Clippers organization may already be irreversible. Recent polls show 68% of fans now expect penalties, up from 62% when the story first broke. The longer this investigation drags on, the more damage it does to the franchise's reputation and ability to conduct business. Mark Cuban, the former Dallas Mavericks owner, has been particularly vocal on social media, posting bankruptcy filing transcripts and raising questions about why Ballmer hasn't filed lawsuits for discovery if he's truly a victim of fraud. Cuban's analysis suggests that there are still major questions about the level of knowledge and involvement of Clippers leadership in this arrangement. What started as an environmental sustainability company's bankruptcy filing has mushroomed into potentially the biggest salary cap scandal in NBA history. Whether the Clippers are truly done remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: this investigation will have lasting consequences for everyone involved. The answer to that question could determine not just the fate of the Los Angeles Clippers, but the future of salary cap enforcement across all professional sports. If the NBA fails to impose meaningful penalties for what appears to be blatant circumvention of league rules, it could open the floodgates for similar schemes across the league. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.